that was recessed from yesterday. Ms. Griffin, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Starnes?
Here.
Ms. Jones? Mr. Damp? Ms. Aguilera? Ms. Aguilera? Mr. Armitage?
Present and attending.
Ms. Aronson? Mr. Blossman?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Mallett? Mr. Morris? Mr. Morrow?
Here.
Mr. Temple?
Present.
Ms. Werner? Here. Mr. Williams? Mr. Woods? Mr. Zuschlag?
Mr. Mallett's here to get.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, there's a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. Good morning, Ms. Lewis. The next item on our agenda is a presentation of large procurements. Ms. Lewis, would you please present?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and board members. The update on the complex procurement is just a few items. I think you were made aware of the LSU student dining and vending procurement that will be going out to start for next year. Just to give you an update on that, the RFP is being drafted and completed, and it should go out at the beginning of April, or sometime between April 1st and April 15th is the target date for that to hit the street. A lot of interest, of course, in that RFP. That is for the all dining services. You know, that was extended, the contract that's in place was extended for 1 year so that we could make it system-wide. So that one will go out April 1st,
And,
or at some point between the 1st and the 15th.
and when is it supposed to come back? And the next follow-up to that would be, is that something that this board has to pass on before it goes into effect?
So that is a 10-year contract, and it would be effective for beginning July 1 of 2023.
So, and we'll have to approve it before then.
Correct. Once we have responses back from the RFP itself, go through the procurement process.
Thank you.
Some other procurements, as far as software procurements, I think you've heard all of these before. Adobe Creative Cloud, Fisher Scientific, Howard Technologies. We're going through the process of determining how to best procure these. These are some softwares that, can we do an RFP process? Can we buy them under an invitation to bid? We're working with IT to determine the best process for those. And insurance, broker and risk consulting services, that's an RFP also that will go out. It's a 5-year contract. We currently pay a flat rate for that. And that is expected, the new contract would go into effect for January 2023, so that's also one that will go out later this year. A few contracts that you heard about previously that are not yet finalized includes the athletic contract with Nike. Mr. DeQueer is currently working through the final language on that contract. I think the last update I had is that he's waiting for a response from the general counsel of Nike. So that procurement is underway.
What's the length of that contract?
That is a 10-year contract, and it is $4.5 million.
Do we have a copy, Mr. Chair? Do we have a copy of what you're reading from or not?
I assume this is in the board binder,
Well,
or in your board materials.
if you don't have it, we'll make sure
I think
everybody's
it's,
copy.
we sent it to Conference Procurement. I think we sent that to you. I'm pretty sure it's, if not, I will make sure you do have it.
It's hard to follow it out here.
Please continue.
Staying with athletics, the contract for baseball equipment is one that will expire at the end of July in 2023. It's a 5-year commitment, and so that is one that will be worked on. 2 previous contracts that you heard about, the RFPs, it's a one-time purchase. One is CT scanning equipment for Vet Med. The bids have been opened and those are being reviewed, and then we're finalizing the terms with the awarded supplier for some scanning transmission electron microscope. So those are the primary procurement contracts. Oh, I'm sorry, the last one, the Lonnie Project fiber assembly contract, one-time purchase for build for 10-year maintenance. No bids were received, so we're going back out with the specs on that one.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Dr. Drotti? Where's? Well, while we wait for him, we have approval of minutes from the December 3rd and 4th, 2021 board meeting. I know that a copy of these minutes have been previously provided to the supervisors. I would like a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes.
Second.
Moved by Supervisor Jones, seconded by Supervisor Damp. Any objection? Without objection, they're approved. Let's see, where's Jason?
We went to get him.
All right.
He's on his way, sir.
Well, we have reports to the board. Today we have 19 reports to the board, which are also previously provided. Are there any questions from, regarding any of these reports? I would like to have a motion to adopt the reports.
So moved.
Motion. Second.
Moved by Mr. Supervisor Mallett, seconded by Supervisor Armentor. Without objection, those reports are approved. Let's see, where's Jason?
Keep going, Angie.
All right, we have personnel actions, which also have been previously provided. Is there a motion to approve the personnel actions?
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Temple. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Mallett. Without objection, the personnel actions are approved. Reports from faculty advisors and staff advisors. Do we have a member of the staff advisors here? Good. I know that at a previous meeting, this item was not bifurcated, and we did not recognize the staff advisors, and for that I apologize. And so I'd like to hear from the staff advisors.
Thank you. I am Patricia Gaspard, and today I am representing the LSU Council of Staff Advisors. I want to tell y'all a little bit about myself. I don't want y'all to think I'm going off on a tangent, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself before I kind of get where I'm going. So I am a wife and a mother of 2 teenage boys, and I am a full-time employee of LSU Eunice, and I graduated at age 35 with my Bachelor's of Science in Human Services from Post University Online as a first-generation graduate. Not only a first generation, but the first of my parents' collective 14 siblings, first of as many people as my family can know that are alive. So a huge accomplishment for me and my family. I'm a full-time employee at LSU Eunice campus, and I'm also, I adjunct teach developmental English at LSU Eunice, and I am the Staff Senate Chair for Eunice campus and also the chair of LSU Council of Staff Advisors. At the time of my graduation, I had been at LSU Eunice for 8 years and had promoted through 5 ranks, from custodial supervisor to my current role as human resources coordinator. Thank you. Thank you. In addition to my current full-time job, as I told you, I also teach developmental English and am the chair of both my campus group and the system-wide group. My oldest son is currently taking advantage of the LSU Academy program, which is going to allow him to graduate with his associate's degree the week after he graduates with his high school diploma. So that's going to happen in May. And my husband is a police sergeant for LSU Eunice Police Department. So I told you all of those things about myself just to hit the point home to you that my family and I, we bleed purple and gold. So you may be wondering why I would choose to forego an education at LSU, the system that I love, in favor of another institution. And the answer is affordability and accessibility. At the time of my enrollment, tuition exemption was not, for online courses, was not an option, and LSU Online probably at that time was a newer thing where other institutions had moved in that direction. So this eliminated LSU for contention for affordability and accessibility reasons. As a non-traditional student with a multitude of personal responsibilities, driving to Baton Rouge campus multiple times per week for classes to take advantage of LSU's current tuition exemption program was not an option for me. This forced me to look outside of the LSU family to further my education. And I thought, if this is happening to me, then it must be happening to other people across the LSU family, who are maybe sometimes forced to pursue an education outside of the LSU system, or sadly not pursue an education at all. On my first trip to main campus, I saw a paper on a wall in HR, and it said, "Working at LSU is a privilege that must be protected through creativity and effort." And now I think it's LSU's turn to get creative, to attract new, diverse candidates, and to make education accessible to the employees who already work here. As I mentioned before, there's currently a very small opportunity for cross-campus tuition exemption, as the current policy states that you must take courses face-to-face. Most LSU campuses are not close enough to consider commuting, or face-to-face courses are not realistic for non-traditional students like myself. There are currently 7,106 tuition exemption employees across LSU A&M, LSU E, LSU A, LSU S, LSU Ag Center, and Pennington Biomedical. There's no way to collect the data to tell you how many dependents those people would have. Trust me, I tried. Both the University of Louisiana system and the LCTCS system are not only competing for our students, but they compete for our employees as well. They both offer system-wide tuition exemption to employees and their dependents. The LSU Council of Staff Advisors is asking LSU to stand behind its commitments to implement its mission in the way of employees by implementing a system-wide tuition exemption program, which includes online programs for eligible employees and their dependents. We would like you to offer a broad, accessible array of undergraduate degree programs and extensive graduate research opportunities designed to attract and educate highly qualified undergraduate and graduate level employees. We want you to cultivate existing employees who are excellent teacher scholars, nationally competitive in research and creative activities, and to contribute to a world-class knowledge base that is transferable to educational, professional, cultural, and economic enterprises through higher education and professional development opportunities. Finally, we ask that you use your extensive resources to educate LSU system employees to provide them greater opportunities to help solve economic, environmental, and social issues in their own communities. Tuition exemption for LSU employees is not only fair, but it's also a continued commitment to the overall growth and success of LSU system, as well as its employees, as it not only decreases turnover rates, which helps with retention, creates professional development opportunities, which we have little of currently, and increases the effectiveness and the efficiency of the system, and makes higher education a reality for the heartbeat of LSU, its employees. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And of course, we'd like to explore that more. Obviously, we value the people who work at LSU, and we want to, obviously give the opportunities where we can. So that's something I certainly would like to look further into.
Well, thank you, and I'm available for anyone to reach out to me.
Thank you, Ms. Gasper.
So I just want to know one thing.
Yes.
Were you in my dream last night? This is exactly what I was thinking. I appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Lopez, faculty advisors.
Oh, good morning. Thanks, and thank you, Chairperson Starnes and Supervisor Mallett for meeting with the Council of Faculty Advisors earlier this morning, bright and early this morning. The Faculty Council Advisors does indeed endorse the tuition exemptions for online education for our LSU family, and as well as, you may recall our request for tuition remission for faculty spouse and, well, faculty spouse. All right, and dependents. All right, as we talked about earlier this morning, the faculty requests that the Board of Supervisors initiate an effort to update their constitution and bylaws to reflect the contemporary organization of our LSU system and resolve any potential conflicts with current Louisiana public meetings laws. They additionally request that a Board of Supervisors liaison work with campus senates to align governing documents. That is, each campus has their own faculty senate, and many of the documents, governing documents, are not in alignment with the current Board of Supervisors. Notably, and to my point, the Constitution of the Baton Rouge Senate does not have, Faculty Senate does not appear to have been ratified appropriately since about 1973. Clearly before I was born. So this is a problem because it has been changed multiple times in the meantime, in 1996, 2004, and again 2020, but it has not been appropriately ratified by a meeting of the campus faculty and a 2/3 quorum, as well as a voice vote. All right, so recently the Baton Rouge Faculty Senate passed a resolution to form a committee, a faculty committee, to assist with calling the meeting and holding the meeting. Another important resolution passed by the Baton Rouge Senate was 22-01, call for enforcement of LSU's PS 118, 100% tobacco-free policy and education campaign for students. I'll share the resolution with Dr. Drotti as it calls for the initiative to be led by the Office of Academic Affairs. And finally, the issue of campus safety was recently raised. Faculty have concerns about the crime on campus and don't feel entirely confident that a phone app to call for help is sufficient. So we are requesting greater police presence and sort of a clear campus safety plan and additional options to signal distress. That's my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you, Professor Lopez. And as we discussed this morning, I mean, clearly that those issues are something that demands some attention. I'd like to hear back from the faculty advisors about best ways to do that. And we talked about potential bylaws changes. Obviously, looking to improve the structure of LSU is something we always look to do. And so I appreciate your efforts in that regard. I'm sure we'll have plenty of interactions on this in the near future. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Drotti? I thought I saw him.
Mr. Chairman, while we're waiting, one correction from yesterday's committee meetings before those are approved. When we went through the lease for Rose Pine, Hampton Grunwald stated yesterday that the prior lease was $2,000 annually. It was actually $20,100 annually. I think when he said 2,000, that of course made Mr. Mallett say, well, that's not, it's actually 20,100, which we did correct that with Mr. Mallett. He thought he was saying 20,000, but he was saying the $32 an acre and not the $20,100. So I just wanted to clarify that for the whole board, for any member that I didn't clarify that with yesterday.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. So we're all straight on that? We're good.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Good.
I can accept that number.
Dr. Drotti, you have proposed bylaws, amendments that we've been working on. Would you present?
Yes, sir. All right, Mr. Chairman, we have on the agenda proposed bylaw change. These have been noticed to the board. The version that we're looking at, I have been told, is in seafoam green. So if you'll look at the seafoam green, the red line version is on the back of the document. And so I would like, Mr. Chairman, if we might, to actually go to page 3 of the red line version, which is the nominating committee. And this is the central part of the change, and it will trickle down to others. What this would do is it would add a committee named the nominating committee. And what the nominating committee would do, it would be composed of 5 members: the chair-elect, the chair, the immediate past chair, and the last 2 people to serve as chair. So it's a total of 5, all right? If there is a vacancy in the nominating committee, then the person willing to serve, who is the most senior, would be able to serve. If multiple people had the same seniority date, we would go to the ancient method of rock, paper, scissors. If there is one of the other issues is for candidates, they would have to indicate to the committee by June 30th, prior to the election, that they intend to stand for candidacy as chair-elect. And from there, the nominating committee would do what it does. It can bring forth more than one candidate. So that is what the nominating committee would do, is it would vet candidates for their qualifications and then bring those candidates to the board. That then triggers actually other changes in the bylaws. So if we'll go to page 1 of the red line version, what this does is in the election portion of the bylaws, it indicates that the nominating committee would bring forth candidates. Now, this does not preclude a person from being nominated on the floor on the day of election, right? So, but what you would have to have is 5 supervisors supporting that action to make you a candidate. There's also one other change, which is what is called a chair term. There's a 2-chair term requirement to serve on the board before you can stand for election. So in other words, you would have to serve under 2 terms of chairman before you yourself could stand for election. So in this instance, Mr. Starnes, if you were here when Mr. Starnes was moved up to the chair, after he rolls out and Ms. Jones rolls into the chair, when she is complete, then you could stand for election if you were a new member. Okay.
Mr. Starnes. Can I ask a question? Hold on. Have you completed your presentation?
Yes, sir. I believe that is all.
Supervisor Knapp?
What is the mechanism, and maybe I just missed it, if you have a nomination from the floor, so to speak, does somebody write a letter to the chairman, for example, and say, Supervisor 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 would like to nominate Supervisor 6. Is it done with a motion and, in essence, 4 seconds? What's the mechanism? How would that work?
Yes, sir. The bylaws are silent on the mechanism. If you wanted a mechanism, we could insert it into the bylaws today, or we could come back and insert it in the rules of the board at the next meeting.
Okay, well, doesn't matter.
Although we already have, but we've adopted Robert's Rules of Orders, and we can do everything by resolution, so obviously resolution of the board would accomplish any nomination. Mr. DeQueer, did you have a comment about that?
I was just going to say, under Robert's rules, a nomination from the floor generally means during the meeting by motion.
Right.
And so, in other words, you'd make the motion for, it would, in essence, take 4 seconds.
4 seconds, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So, does anybody have any questions about the nominating committee? We have bifurcated. Obviously, there's some other things we were considering about bylaws changes. I just saw when Professor Lopez was talking about things we may need to address with bylaws changes. But today, we're only going to address these nominating committee issues. Does anyone have any questions to either me or Dr. Drade about the proposal before you? With that, I'll accept a motion to accept this proposal as an amendment to the bylaws.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Supervisor Mallett, second by Supervisor Williams. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection? That objection is passed. The next item, thank you, Dr. Crotty. The next item on the agenda is the President's report.
Thank you, sir. First, we'd like to make sure we have a formal introduction of Ms. Lewis, who is obviously already presented, but just wanted to welcome you. She's already hit the ground running clearly. Thank you for your leadership to date. This is a wonderful time to celebrate a few accomplishments. Very briefly, clearly the announcement of the largest philanthropic gift to LSU was a major announcement. It's come to my attention it may be the largest philanthropic gift to higher education in this state's history, so that does speak a lot about what has happened. A couple of things manifest with that are extremely important for our strategic aims. When I arrived 7 months ago, I believe we had to raise $58 million for a science building. There was some money that had been raised, but that is now taken off the table. So that is a tremendous success because that is a big part of our strategic aim to advance the scientific enterprise of this institution. And here in Baton Rouge, a very important part of what we want to get done. I want to highlight a couple of things. We talked a little bit yesterday during Dr. Nelson's presentation. I want to make sure that there's clarity with respect to what is happening on the NCI front. Dr. Nelson did present, and he may be humbly did acknowledge that he's going to have to be the person who runs the ball over the 10 yards that we talked about yesterday in his capacity on leading the New Orleans enterprise. So I want to thank you, sir, publicly for taking on the challenge in your past history with respect to advancing cancer research in this community. And I am confident that you will be a community builder in our efforts. I think it's also important to acknowledge in terms of that gift that the wonderful things that are going to happen in sports medicine for our institution. Very, very special, not only to be able to say we recruit elite athletes, but to be able to provide them the best medical services possible. In addition, it's important to note that we have an opportunity with that gift to also look inward and hold a mirror up at our health services here on our campus. When I arrived, one of my colleagues from another institution indicated that we had, very solid health services, and asked me what would you do to improve it? Well, I think we have now an opportunity from a financial point of view and with a partner to hold a mirror up and ask how we can improve it and really provide our students who come here and matriculate here the best mental health services, the best things for their physical health at scale with a partner that's right here in the region. So I'm very excited about that opportunity. It really will be something we can use to recruit students to this campus to talk about the enhancement of the healthcare services they will be receiving as a result of their matriculation. Also wanted to talk about the legislative session real briefly. We start that, well, it's already been going, but the reality is the more formal aspects begin next week. You've been briefed about what we call the ABCDEs of this process. I don't think about it that way per se. I think about it really, it's our Sputnik moment. And I think the Sputnik moment, some of you may not be old enough to know what Sputnik was, or you didn't pay attention in history class. But the reality is the Sputnik moment was a catalytic moment in the history of the United States of America with respect to the investment in science, in engineering, in libraries. Often people forget about the fact that the Sputnik agenda included the expansion of libraries in the United States of America. And right now, if we think about the things we're dealing with on the world stage, in my opinion, this is our Sputnik moment. We've got to look at our science, our engineering, our health, and our library and ask ourselves, how can we catalyze that? And that is what we're doing in our legislative agenda. For me, it's 100% a Sputnik moment. I'll start first with C, which is really foundational because it's really how our community is protected, and that's our coast. We are going to have asks related to coastal science and coastal engineering, extremely important for the advancement of our community. If you've seen the recent research about what's supposed to happen on the Gulf Coast with respect to the height of the water coming in, if there is no more important defense mechanism that we have than the science and engineering related to the coast, as well as the social science and understanding human behavior. And so we will be making requests on that front. Also, you can't ignore the fact that we are at the precipice of a really difficult time with respect to the world stage. And the one thing that you saw constantly, if you paid attention to it, is the importance of cyber. There probably isn't any agenda more important for us to engage in on the science front than actually advancing our cyber defense, cyber core. We want to be the absolute best institution in the United States of America, and we need to be. You saw a young lady yesterday who's working on the basic science of it, but there's also other applications that we have an opportunity to advance, and we are going to go full bore on that front across the LSU family to be absolutely elite on the defense front. This also speaks to our past history being a military school. But in the modern military, cyber is the way to go, and I think that we have an opportunity. There's one other thing I want to highlight. Ms. Lally brought up yesterday. She said she had to leave. I said, and I did say yesterday, she did need to leave because of her skill set and what's here in our local economy. We have to change that. So we've got to not only work to build our research infrastructure related to cyber, but also make it possible for people like that to actually want to be able to stay here as entrepreneurs and leaders on that front. Clearly, energy is very important for us. We have great opportunities on the alternative energy side to support our major industries here, and we would like to be outstanding in that in every regard, and so that will be a big part of our legislative agenda. Biomedical, clearly that's a big part of what we have to do. We've already raised, on the philanthropic side, our portion for the interdisciplinary science building. Now we have to close the deal on the government's part of that, and other related activities. And of course, agriculture, which is foundational to what we do here in Louisiana. So if we took it the ABC way, it would be ag, biomedical, coastal, defense, and energy, and that is really the ABCDE of what we're going to be doing in our legislative agenda. It includes the totality of our family, and the asks are going to be related to everyone enhancing their infrastructure, in these core areas in our current Sputnik moment. Very excited about that. Lastly, I would like to just provide a couple of things related to strategic aims. We are going to have a strategy laying out process, a really strategic planning process. Some of you participated in the values retreat, which was the initial part of that. I thought it was a smashing success with respect to building camaraderie and also thinking about our core values. I'm not sure where we landed. I have mine, truth, empathy, and courage, but that group had others, and we're synthesizing them and hoping that they help catalyze us a long way for our strategic planning process, and I'm extremely excited about that. But there are two strategic aims that I think need to be stated publicly right now because they get lost in the minutia of the things we have to do day to day. And one is related to our research. I've mentioned to this body that right now when we bring in our research dollars, they appear to be in multiple institutions, which really causes us to lose a unified ranking. We don't code our money, we don't source our money as being one. Even though each institution has its own research dollars, there are other institutions that have figured out how to at least report in a unified fashion and thus accelerate their rankings, which also helps you with NCI and other kinds of matters. So we will have to make some organizational name changes in order to get that alignment. One of them relates to the two medical centers in Shreveport and in New Orleans, and it will require probably a name change to something like, in terms of, instead of having a chancellor, there'll be the chief medical and health affairs officer of the South and of the North. There's two reasons to do that. Right now, when you say the person's the chancellor of New Orleans or the chancellor of Shreveport, it makes it seem like they're really responsible for those particular cities. That is true. But we would like to send a signal not only about an alignment of our research and being unified, because once we change those names, those folks would then directly report to me, and I'd be the chief medical and health affairs officer, which allows us to report all of our numbers to NSF in a unified fashion. It also signals something that is deeply important. And it's not just about Shreveport and New Orleans. It's about the whole state of Louisiana. And I want those individuals in those jobs to feel like they're responsible for a significant part of the state advancing health and medical practice. And if we can take over the totality of that and own it, as we should as a flagship, that's called winning. And I simply think that it is time for us to just put the flag down and say we are going to be in charge and advance that agenda across this state symbolically and realistically with every bit of fiber and energy we have. And so those name changes for me are extremely important. It also will help us with NSF. So it's a twofer for us. It's setting the flag down for the state and letting them know that we are serious about the totality of the state. It also sends a message to the National Science Foundation that we are a unified front in a serious research environment. And so those things will be happening in short order. I'll work with my colleagues in those places because those are HR matters that filter down with different name changes for lots of different people. It's going to require folks in our community to be a bit flexible as we do this. However, I want to assure each of you who are board members, Board of Supervisor members, that it doesn't change their organizational responsibility. We're sending signals to the state and to NSF that are just different. They will fundamentally have the same responsibilities, except with one exception, they'll be expanded. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Well said. The next item on the agenda is approval of committee recommendations. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Supervisor Morrow, seconded by Supervisor Armentor. Any objection? Without objection, those reports are accepted and approved. Now, my chair's report. I want to thank the president for his leadership and thank him for that Vision and Values Retreat he referenced, I participated in. I thought it was a marvelous event. I saw many of you there, and I think it was a good opportunity for all people from around the different elements that are LSU to get together, collaborate, network. I thought it was very positive. I want to thank the president for doing that, Colonel Bigger for organizing that. I thought it was very well done, and I look forward to seeing future collaborations among all the entities that are LSU and the results of whatever y'all distill from that process. I'm excited to see what they are. I think it's going to be very positive for LSU. I was also echoing the president's remarks about the NCI pursuit, designation pursuit. I want to thank Dr. Nelson for his presentation yesterday. And I've been to the medical school in New Orleans recently. Thank you, Senator Murray, for a tour there. It's always good to be at our different campuses, our different schools, and it's very exciting to see the things going on there. But what struck me about the remarks yesterday was a word called transdisciplinary, and I like it. We live in a world with complex problems, and those problems are transdisciplinary. I'm convinced the solutions are too, and we should look for ways to collaborate amongst different disciplines to find the best ways forward in science, research, medicine, and the behavioral sciences. In my day job, I deal with some complex issues that involve human behavior, and I'm convinced that if we're going to improve the human condition, it's going to be a transdisciplinary approach. So I'm very excited about the idea of that. Multiple disciplines. Not just multiple disciplines, but also the people involved. I like the idea that we're going to incorporate the efforts of people in Shreveport, our medical school there, and Pennington. And thank you, Dr. Kerwin, for hosting that event at Pennington, and the great things we can do there. And of course, here on the Baton Rouge campus and other campuses, all working together towards a common goal, which is that NCI designation, which I'm firmly committed that we will achieve. I don't know how or when, but I know we're committed to doing it. We're going to find the resources and commit them to do the things we need to do to get to where we need to be, because I'm convinced that the health of Louisiana is going to be better once we are doing the healthcare and research in that arena that we need to be doing. And I'm convinced beyond all doubt that it's going to be LSU that leads the way in doing that. And of course, I thank everybody who's been involved in it thus far, but we have a long way to go, but we're going to go those miles together. I recently was on the campus of LSU A, and I was very excited to see roads blocked off, tape up, and dirt turned. Some people would say that would be something that you wouldn't want to see, but I see progress. I know we broke ground last year on a big federal grant to do the work that needs to be done on that campus regarding drainage and other improvements, and I see those things happening. I spent all day there last Saturday, and I was very encouraged, Chancellor, what I see on your campus, so thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Also, we just concluded the Olympics. We all saw athletes from around the world compete at the highest levels, one of whom was a graduate of LSUS. Sylvia Hoffman was a member of the two-woman bobsled team that won the bronze medal for the United States, and she was a basketball player at LSUS, a pilot in 2009, 2010, and I was more than excited to hear that watching that telecast. So I know we're all proud of her achievements, and we know that great things can be accomplished. When you're trained at LSU, we see it all the time, not just athletically. I know that LSUS has been a leader in online education, and we're very proud of that. And they're also a leader in that they enroll the largest number of African-American graduate students in Louisiana. And I think that that's another area of leadership, and I thank LSUS for doing that. Recently, we took some trips to visit some peer institutions around the SEC. It was centered around our ag extension. Dr. LaBorde was on those trips along with several producers. Vice Chancellor Sam Bentley, or Vice President of Research Sam Bentley was on those trips. And President Tate, with other supervisors, and myself. We visited the University of Georgia. We had a full day of meetings with some of their top faculty and members of their Farm Bureau in Georgia about how ag extension works in that state. I was very impressed and very thankful for their hospitality. They're good people who who showed us a lot of great things. They do a lot of things well there, and I think we learned a lot. We took a similar trip to the University of Kentucky recently. Those people were also very gracious, and it was not the first time we had been there. President Caputo hosted us, Capilouto, excuse me, hosted us, and it was a fantastic day. They do some wonderful things in ag extension, things that I'd like to see us do, which is a more robust extension, more outreach into the several parishes of Louisiana. And I thank them for their hospitality. I think we learned a lot. I think the tour is going to continue, and we're going to be able to have the forward-looking ag extension that I know we all want to see. And thank you, Dr. LaBorde, for your participation. And Hamp, thank you, sir. I enjoyed being with y'all on those trips. We had the meeting earlier than we usually do today. We convened at 8 this morning. It's because the women's basketball team is playing tonight in the SEC tournament, and the baseball team is playing in a tournament this weekend in Houston. So should anyone want to travel and support those teams, they would have a better opportunity to do so. I encourage it. They need our support, and I'm very excited about watching them play. That concludes my remarks, but I want to thank you for your attendance here. With that, I can accept a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Supervisor Williams. So with that, we are adjourned. Go Tigers.